AskReddit by Spicy Novel. What is the most petty reason someone has gotten a divorce? My uncle divorced his sixth wife because he wanted to remarry his first wife. The circle of wife. My mill and her second husband, they both sell second-hand books. They had a large hall where they kept the books, divided by a middle path. There had fallen a book out of a box and laid in the middle on the path. They had such a fight about whose book it was, they divorced over it. The book was worth $4 and they both made $150k plus per year. Edit. Damn, this comment blew up. To answer the most asked questions. 1. No, I don't know who ended up with the book. 2. It was a children's book about a bear. 3. Yes, she makes a lot of money with it. They had deals with second-hand shops, companies who clean out houses of people that passed etc. that they could go through their books and buy them for a few bucks per book. Books can be very expensive if you know what to look for. Science, theology or philosophy books can sometimes go for $200 or $300, even a $1,000 for special editions etc. So they sell them online on a similar website as Amazon. This is honestly kinda funny to me because I like to imagine they had zero other issues, but this somehow became the war. Someone I currently work with used to work in an oncology department where one of the doctors divorced his wife for getting cancer. Everyone in the department basically hated him. I recall my colleague saying that new hires were all informed of what he'd done, so everyone could be on the same page of knowing he was a terrible person. From what I hear, his wife beat the cancer and I think the guy eventually changed hospitals he worked at. I've had a dean who divorced his wife for getting lupus. He was a pathologist, his wife too, and she still worked at the university. Awkward dart. Vocal Christian, the guy, always brought up his faith during lectures. Edit, to clarify who brought up what. Grandma sued her second husband for a divorce because he got me a puppy for my 7th birthday. She felt the puppy outshined her present to me. Did you get to keep the puppy though? Julius Caesar got a divorce because of rumors his wife had an affair. He publicly said she didn't do it, but divorced her anyway because the wife of Caesar must be above suspicion. Someone needs to take that guy down a peg or two. I'm a divorce attorney. Had a client whose wife filed for divorce because she didn't get along with his sister one time. They had one disagreement. Seriously. That was it. He didn't stick up for his wife, she got mad, and filed for divorce. She said on the stand that they had a great marriage, he was a good father, but that one incident was too much. The judge told them this is the dumbest reason I've ever seen anyone get divorced, and he'd been a judge for 20 plus years. LMAO, she definitely posted a thread to A to first. I have a cousin who has been married 4 times for a year and a half collectively. The most recent divorce happened after a month when she told him he needed to cut the grass since it was tall. He got all pissed off and called it quits. Their preacher went to talk to him and told him, well, she's right. The grass is getting tall. You do need to cut it. My cousin's response deadass was, I know that, but ain't no woman gonna tell me what to do. I love this story because it's entirely bizarre to me as reasonable and also sounds like some weird redneck southern country style good old boy nonsense. And of course might not be. But tickles me that way. My grandma divorced her 5th husband because he wouldn't let her remodel their kitchen. I didn't like him, but it was a dumb reason to divorce in my opinion. Edit, there's no doubt my grandma is the issue. We apologize to people that have to meet her. To be fair, the husband number 1 and amp 3, my grandfather, is the same guy and he's a pedo. Husband number 2 was by all accounts okay, though I never met him. Husband number 4 was my personal favorite, but he was an alcoholic and died of cirrhosis. He was awesome when he wasn't drinking, but he was married to my grandma, so I mean we get it. Husband number 5 was a jerk. I didn't like him at all. Husband number 6 was really nice, he lasted 3 years and straight up moved halfway across the planet. Again we get it. Fifth husband. A friend got divorced by his wife of 3 months. When the wife was asked what was wrong, she said that it was nothing, he just snored loudly. In the worst case, they could have had separate bedrooms. Deleted. I fell out of love with you after your dad died. I know you were grieving, but I had needs too. My ex-wife everyone. Her excuse for cheating and immediately moving in with the other guy. You and my friend would have lots to talk about. Ugh, are you still fucking crying about that? You guys hadn't even talked for a couple of years. This is what her shitty ex said 2 weeks after her mom died. I knew this couple. The guy was 3 years younger than me and we went to school together as kids, where the husband was a farmer and he put his wife through school and she got her degrees. She started off as a nurse and worked her way up, and became a PA. Once she started working at a doctor's office, she thought she was too smart for her dumb farmer husband and divorced him because he wasn't educated and he wasn't up to her level of intelligence. I worked with a guy that was a physicist at NASA who put his wife through med school. He even paid for her to open her first practice. After a year or so she said she wanted a divorce. She was now in love with a lawyer. What got me was when he asked about their daughter. She said you can keep her. They may not have gotten divorced because of it, but I know of a couple that fought over who got the canned fruit at their divorce trial. Like Libby's canned peaches or artisan handmade small batch preserves from organic hand harvest local heirloom fruit. My ex became a gym bro after getting married. 2 years into it he asked for a divorce because he was upset I did not know how much weight he was lifting in the leg press machine. Some months before he had banned me from going with him to the gym because I did not match his vibe. So when I returned I was kind of doing my thing and my own routine. But not focusing fully on him was apparently the wrong move. So well, that narcissist type. Obviously he had a new girl immediately after, but the reason he gave me about the weight was just so petty. Lol, I don't know why, but this reminded me of a story I heard recently about Mark Maron. He said he wrote in his book that his mother dealt with anorexia and weighed 119 pounds. She apparently called him to tell him she actually weighed 116 pounds. IDK, if you could really say it's petty, because it's due to cheating, but the situation was kind of bizarre to me. I had these neighbors, husband and wife, lived across the street from me for a long time. They were easily in their 70s, maybe a little older. IDK, never asked their ages. Anyway, eventually, I noticed that the wife wasn't outside with him anymore when he'd sit on the porch. I asked about her one day and he told me that she cheated on him with a guy in his 20s and left to be with him. 50-year marriage down the drain. I guess maybe she wanted someone who was the same age as her and her husband were when they first got married. Dang. As they say, 20 goes into 70 more times than 70 goes into 70. Not divorce, but apparently my brother's wife's sister called off her wedding because New Kids on the Block were doing a reunion tour and she decided she'd rather go to the concert than get married. A family friend, because I married the wrong brother. 2 years later she married the older brother and they've been happily married for the last 20 years and have a kid together. Oh, family events gotta be hella awkward now. I hope my friend doesn't mind me sharing this story, but her husband divorced her after 3 months because she wasn't cuddling or affectionate enough for him. Mind you, this was her first marriage, let alone first relationship, and this was his third marriage. They both worked full time, but he worked 2 hours away and would sometimes have to stay the night at work because it was more convenient for him all around. But when he got home he expected food, sex and cuddles. Never brought this up to her until the day he said it was over. I can see why he can't stay married. Doesn't communicate. A friend's parents went through a divorce and then just kept going like the divorce never happened and are still together to this day. Don't know what the reason was, but it must have been petty. So you know my parents? I think my mom just hated being a wife tbh. So they got divorced, there was talk of moving out and then they just didn't. Still together and describe themselves as being such. I think anytime someone divorces cause the other person gets cancer takes the cake. I always suspected my parents had problems growing up and they certainly did. But apparently when my mom got breast cancer my dad sprung into action and stepped up for my mom in so many ways and was with her every step and every way. My mom recently told me cancer saved their marriage because he in that time showed her how much he cares even though he comes off cold and stoic. It was weird learning true love exists and that my parents have it. A friend of mine had a seizure during the night. Ended up in the ICU for a couple of days then was on a lower for 90 days. The day after he found out that he was going to need to take and lower his wife went and filed for divorce, stating that without his regular level of income he was useless to her. Fucking yikes, imagine explaining that to a judge. My ex told me his grandmother was into astrology and psychic readings when she was younger. I don't know about her interest in her later years. Apparently, she got a reading that said her third marriage would be the one that lasted, so she married and divorced quickly twice to get to the third guy. They did last until she passed, so maybe she was onto something, but maybe she was in too deep at that point and would have stayed just to prove a point. I always found it pretty wild. I have found that the reason people say they got divorced and the actual reason they got divorced is usually very different. I knew a guy that married a super rich, super hot woman. He used to drop 20 grand on wine a month in my store. She stopped giving him BJs, so he divorced her. A year later, he was living in a rooming house in a shitty neighborhood. My brother's ex-wife only married him to prove a point to her parents that she could settle down with someone and raise a family and stop partying all the time. She divorced him after having a kid with him and making him get a vasectomy because she never loved him in the first place and was miserable. My ex-wife left me a couple weeks after I medically discharged from the military because she wanted to be with someone who could take care of her and ended up getting with another guy in the military. Just chasing benefits. Are just dependent things.